Hey guys, it's Roderick, and I'm here with the review of X-Men number 26. I read this comic book about 3 times, right? I always like to kind of read it a couple of times just to kind of get a sense of, after you get your first impression, then to kind of see what's really going on here? What's kind of the subtext? How are we moving with the story and whatever? So after reading it about 3 times, I was like, okay, there are 2 things that really irked me about this issue and kind of the X-Men title, this X-Men book in particular. One is comical, one is serious. We'll do the serious one first. So if you recall, from House of X, Powers of X, one of the great things about the X-Men title when it first launched is that the book in and of itself was not kind of engrossed in kind of the daily lives, kind of soapy aspects of the X-Men, right? It was kind of plot points about the building of Krakoa Nation and House of X, Powers of X, X of Swords, Destiny of X, Rise of X, and the book kind of marched on. Even as the team and the compositions changed, you really didn't get into kind of the interpersonal relationships of the X-Men. Now, I know a lot of people kind of did not like that, but it was kind of refreshing to get a more action-packed, action-based book, through the first 3 or 4 phases of the Krakoan Age, right? We really got some really interesting kind of events, even if we did not know how they kind of initially connected to the whole Age of Krakoa. They were very interesting kind of things, and you really got to see the Summers family and how all of that kind of intermersed. And then once the book kind of drifted from being the Summers-centric kind of family to bringing in all these other people, and we're bringing Sync in, and we're introducing the Children of the Vault, and Alex is having one of his moments, we started to get into that interpersonal messiness of the book that really kind of hinders sometimes plot development and also can be a cover for character development just because it's a messy moment, right? Now, as a filmmaker, as an actor, as a screenwriter, I understand that storytelling is a brick by brick by brick experience, right? It's not a track home thing where you can just kind of throw it up. I recognize they're building moments and building levels, but with this book, I just didn't get the sense of that. And this will be my last time I mention it, I didn't appreciate the Fugazi cover, right? I have been, as I said, I've been collecting comic books for 30 years, okay? My gosh, more than 30 years almost, right? So almost probably close to 40 years now, I've been collecting comic books. So I know the bait and switch with the cover, but to have a cover that was so egregiously, I don't know which was more egregious, this cover or the Immortal X-Men cover, right? At least the Immortal X-Men cover kind of sort of tied into it, but this one was just a ridiculous bait and switch with a ridiculous storyline, as I get to in a minute, that was just almost quasi-insulting, right? Am I going to stop buying? No. But I'm just calling the chicken what the chicken is, regardless if we put some lipstick on it or not, right? Okay, so let's get into this issue. So the issue starts with Emma Frost and Wilson Fisk in the Morlock tunnels right after the Hellfire Gala. And we get the flashback of how Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, is married to Typhoid Mary, who is also a mutant. And during the Hellfire Gala, there was all the commotion, as you recall, and Typhoid Mary and Wilson Fisk got separated. Wilson ended up being teleported with Emma into the tunnels. Well, as they're in the tunnels, and there's also this whole thing about because Wilson Fisk knows killers when he sees one, and he's trying to tell the ambassador to Ireland they're about to kill us. He's like, I'm the ambassador to Ireland. I'm not going to die. Remember the ambassador to Ireland getting melted right there in front of everybody? So when Wilson Fisk and everybody is teleported to the tunnels, he tells Emma, look, they're going to start coming for your assets. So you need to start coming up with a plan. And then she's like, well, help. The enemies of your enemies are my enemies. And then Emma's like, okay, perfect, great. Okay, I'll call my lawyers. And he's like, your enemies are my enemies, but we're not working together. You work for me again. Now, that was a whole subtext conversation based upon Dark Reign with the X-Men when we saw the flashback of how Emma Frost used to work for Wilson Fisk, right? Back in the day, she used to do undercover goopy stuff, telepathic stuff for him and whatever. So now she's back to working with him again. So Wilson Fisk is the new White King of the Hellfire Club, right? So anyway, So we get that. So we kind of get that scene, and then we cut to this Kamala Khan scene where she's coming out of university, and people are beating up this person because they think she's a mutant, and she's about to big it on up and defend him. Then she's like, "Ooh, witch! I'm supposed to be down low and whatever." She's like, does the whole I'm recording you, and the guys run away. Well, the person they're beating up wasn't even a mutant. They just had alopecia, right? So really Kamala sees kind of how this anti-mutant rhetoric has kind of spilled over, not just to mutants, but just to anybody who looks different, right? Which I was like, okay, interesting, right? She's a mutant now, she's in the mix, can't complain. So then we now go back now to Emma Frost as now she's in her disguise as Hazel Kendall, right? And we find out that Tony Stark is the Black King of the Hellfire Club, kind of operating in public, doing this kind of quasi Bruce Wayne thing where he's like drunk and all happy and telling stories and whatever. But in the interim, he's trying to build a new Iron Man suit because Fei Long has taken over Stark Unlimited. And Fei Long, as you recall, is the kind of mutant-hating person who took over Phobos outside of Mars and also appropriated the Stark technology into the Sentinels, right? So Fei Long owns all of Tony's technology. Tony's trying to build a new suit. Emma is working as his assistant just to kind of like be undercover and whatever, right? Okay, fine. Of all the things for Emma to do, this is what happens. So then we get to see Emma goes in. So she grabs Tony while he's telling one of his stories. Is like, look, I heard you have optics inside of Orchis, but if your mole is Firestar, you need to get a word to her that Kitty's coming to kill her, right? Like, this was like giving me very Kill Bill-esque, right? If you remember that scene at the end of Kill Bill when Bill goes around as like, Beatrix Kiddo is coming to kill you, and everyone's like, bring her on, or I'm scared, or whatever like that, right? It very much gave me like that Kill Bill kind of scene, because some folks didn't believe fat meat was greasy, and some folks did, right? Anywho, so he's like, well, we can't really tell you because we're keeping things compartmentalized. And I was like, well, who the fuck is Tony Stark to act like you keeping things compartmentalized for a mutant problem? Like, this is what I was talking about in Uncanny Avengers, about the Avengers kind of swooping in, being kind of Captain Save-A-Ho about a problem that they could have probably solved a long time ago, right? Because not only was it Tony Stark's technology that's in the Sentinels, it's Tony Stark's technology that helped create Orchis, right? So we are like at a book in Tony Stark's problem. So I understand why he feels like he needs a kind of Captain Save-A-Ho, but this doesn't feel like he's doing it for the goodness of the mutants. He's like doing this because he just likes to be a kind of Captain Save-A-Ho type of motherfucker type of person, right? Anyway, she's like, well, I don't know who your mole is. If it's Firestar, tell him Kitty's coming, right? So then we get Kitty coming in, and she's like, she's used her gate to get into this Orchis station called the Bloom, which is right outside of the moon. So I don't know whether they took the Bloom that was actually the old Summers house, right? Remember the Summers house was kind of housed in a Bloom? I don't know that they just appropriated that and foisted that outside the moon and made that an Orchis station. Anyway, that's what that is now, right? So Kitty's in there. She's hunting Firestar. So we get this confrontation between Kitty and Firestar, and she's like, Kitty's trying to kill her, and they're punching her, and Firestar has a bloody nose, and she's like, look, stop. I didn't do this on my own. I'm not a traitor. Jean foisted this on me. We came up with this plan. She planted the memories in Dr. Stasis's mind. She like didn't have enough time to bring everybody in, but like, I'm not really a traitor on this. Like, this is just something on some undercover, 21 Jump Street type of shit, right? And then Kitty's like, what? She was like, look, I can burn this whole motherfucker down if you want me to prove it to you, but then I kind of blow my cover. So then Kitty's like, well, that is the most Jean story I've ever heard of before, right? Coming up with a plan with a whole mole, but then you died right before you could clue everybody else in or who the mole was. That kind of makes sense, right? So then I was like, well, if that's the case, right? So what's the big payoff for this Firestar mole, right? Now Firestar did say, well, tell everybody else so they can, know I'm not a traitor. And Kitty's like, nah, it'll keep your cover good if mutants keep coming after you trying to kill you. You just got to stay alive until we come back and figure out this problem, right? So I was like, okay. But so now we have the whole Firestar mole Kitty thing that kind of was like, nah, right? I just was like, well, okay. So anywho, Now we get to the part that really annoyed the dog fuck out of me, right? So Kitty then leaves this whole situation. She goes to see Emma. Emma and her are talking in the alley. Emma's like, have you found Scott yet? Do you know where Scott is? I can't really do all of this and go decide to go kill all these mutants and do all this stuff if I can't find Scott. I need to know that Scott's okay. Blah, blah, blah. Mind you, as we saw 2 issues ago, Scott's being foisted up, tortured by Dr. Stasis, and then sewed his whole ass eyes closed, right? So she's like, I need to find Scott. She's like, okay, let me go tell Tony he can go fuck himself and keep this Hazel bullshit, and I'll meet you in the alley, girl, and we'll go start killing some humans, right? So she goes inside, and then as she's coming back inside, she sees Fei Long. So she decides, so Emma Frost, who is like the mistress of coolness, the most poised, put together, all you Emma Frost stands out there who love you some Emma Frost, right? Are always like, she's cool, she's calculating, she's put together. She's about to lose it so bad, she almost blows her whole ass cover because she's about to kill Fei Long right out here in public, which also could get her captured too. I'm not really believing that. Anyway, Tony snatches her, was like, you can't really do this, you can't really kill him. She's like, move out my way, I will deal with you and I'll deal with him. She's taking over about to take off her inhibitor ring, and he's like, you would never touch my mind. I was like, what? Like, what makes you think, Tony Stark, that you so motherfucking special that you can't get your mind swiped because all these mutants are missing? Like Tony Stark is really feeling himself in this issue. Like, he is really, really feeling himself. And so before they can finish this conversation, she kicks him in the balls, and he's on his knees. Fei Long walks in, and then it's like, Stark, you're proposing to the help? Oh my God, whatever. So then Emma sends a telepathic message to Kitty and says, hey, Kitty, I gotta, plans have changed. I can't come with you. She's like, I know, girl. I know. Like, I know you stay in some bullshit. I wasn't going to wait for you that long anyway. So let me go in and let me go on this right here. Taking out the Fugazi cover, which, okay, I'm sorry, I mentioned it one more again. This whole concept, like, this is why I've never liked Emma Frost. I have never liked her because it's okay to be a hoe. Right? But I need a hoe. You got a hoe with some type of standards, with some type of ethics, with some type of code. And all it seems is she is just a side chick president. She's like the side chick union president, right? That's all she is. She's a union president for side chicks and slides, right? Because how is it on one part of your mouth, you're all like, I need to find my man, I need to find my man, I need to find my man, but now you're getting proposed to. And Marvel's going to make us believe that she's going to go through with this. But mind you, Scott is foisted up like the last, like the Passion of the Christ with his eyes stitched out, and ain't nobody worried about where Scott is. I ain't heard nary a voice, nary a thing, where's Scott, what's going on, whatever. And literally when the original 5 X-Men is sitting up being tortured, could be dead, back is broken, don't know what, and Emma's about to get married to Tony Stark. If this wedding goes through, I am legit, the glasses will come on and I'll have to read the issue down for filth because I think this is like wholly ridiculous, right? So to bookend this conversation, we now have drifted now from action plot points to like, this is some Days of Our Lives type of shit, right? This is like some Roman and like Brady type of shit, right? Like, I just don't, this is like some Roman John Black type of shit, right? Like how is this supposed to work? Anyway, so that's how the issue ends. The caption for the next issue, I guess we're going to go back to Scott, who's being tortured. Like, doesn't Dr. Stasis give you some Stefano DiMera tease for all the Days of Our Lives fans? Like, Dr. Stasis and Sinister are really, like, giving you, like, Stefano DiMera, Tony DiMera, if you all know this. Oh, my God, Mother Righteous is Kristen. Oh, my goodness, they literally have created the whole DiMera family with the whole Dr. Sinister goes, oh, my God, Mother Righteous is like Kristen. Okay, anyway. That was the issue. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, it was good. I'm invested. But yeah, now that we got into the whole like Days of Our Lives, soapy lives with like Emma and this like Fugazi ass wedding, I have some thoughts. So hopefully this will all be a trickery. Next issue or a couple of issues will be like, ha ha ha, we're not really getting married. Because if that bitch walks down the aisle, we're going to have some thoughts. Anyway, thanks, guys. See you later.